Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Unexplained and Unsolved podcast. In this episode, I will be diving into another r/nosleep story, this one being from a different user by the name of Jed Cook. So thank you again, Jed Cook, for letting me read your story. And this one says it's a series, but I'm not sure if he's uploaded another part to it yet. This was uploaded 6 months ago, so I'll have to check again, depending on if you guys like the story or not. But yeah, let's get right into it. Marc's Declassified Demon Survival Guide. It seems that I find myself sitting up at the front desk of a crematory for yet another anxiety-riddled night. All the shifts on today's schedules have been burned through, and I find myself twiddling my thumbs for the last few hours of my shift. Mr. Abergast, my boss, had left hours early and left me in charge of the building until morning came. It's not wise to leave this godforsaken place unsupervised for too long. Truthfully, I would have never gotten into this field if I knew the horrible things that were entailed in it. But I digress. I took the job, the pay is decent, and my name might as well be written in blood on the contract. We're a fairly small business in terms of the clientele we accept. The bigger crematoriums in the larger neighboring cities will send us their undesirables, whether that ranges from the innocent souls trapped in purgatory or the malevolent beings who exist only to inflict pain. Pretty cool stuff, right? I would wager that 9 out of the 10 who get wheeled through our door are relatively harmless. They usually take up residence within the confines of Abergast Crematorium. In fact, over the last few months that I've worked here, I've come to make friends with some of these spirits, including Leslie, an older woman who'd spent her earthly days as a barista. It wasn't uncommon to find a freshly brewed pot whenever I found myself in the break room alone. Others can be a bit more nefarious. Similar to the kid in your choir class who would pull your seat out from under you just before you sat down. Not particularly dangerous, but occasionally annoying. Herman, a gentleman who died of a massive heart attack during a particularly intense session with a prostitute, would fling papers and pencils off my desk at any chance he got. Poor bastard's probably mad when the coroner found him in his car as twig and berries were hanging out of his fly. I always make sure to stick up a middle finger when the pencil I was going to reach for suddenly zipped across the room. I'd like to think he got a good laugh out of it. As these bodies are prepared to be superheated into a fine powder, some of them, not all but some, will make subtle movements as they lay on the prep table. I figured it couldn't be the wind, considering our building was surrounded by dense woods. That's just a little lie that I would tell myself during the few weeks I started working here. It helped my ease and anxiety a bit. Of course, now the truth is irrefutable, folks. There certainly are ghosts, spirits, demons, and specters that exist among us. We're not so different from them. Obviously, they used to be one of us. There are certain rules that do apply to these variety of ghosts. I won't call them demons for obvious reasons. However, they don't need to be written or followed as stringently as they need to be when it comes to a more conniving evil spirit. I'm sure you've all heard of the saying, glorifying the dead. Like when Grandpa dies and everyone gathers telling stories of how innocent and sweet he used to be, even though Grandma suffered one too many black eyes for it to be just the door's fault. It turns out this old saying does hold some water. Outside of Herman, I would find myself biting my tongue around certain spirits that would walk the premise. Let's take Samantha for an example. I wouldn't necessarily classify her as an evil spirit so much as a child who got too big and found out she could whoop mom's ass. You see, Samantha tends to hang around Mr. Abergast's office, and when I find myself looking for a certain document or a piece for a ritual, we'll cover rituals another time, that I can't seem to find it, it's best to not curse her name. It was a couple months back when I was looking for a particular set of candles, a piece for one of the rituals, and I found that a completely different place than it should have been. I knew instantly who must have done it, and that night I was hopped up on one too many Red Bulls and my nerves were twisted in a knot. "God damn it, Samantha, you're going to get me killed," I shouted. And just before I could exit the office, the door slammed shut and consequently shattered my nose. My nose now leans a few centimeters to the left, more than I'd like, but I definitely wouldn't be making the mistake again. I'd hate to imagine the idea of a living Samantha, let alone a ghastly asshole who roams around my boss's office now. Again, that might sound bad and grounds for quitting even a decent paying job, but as I said, the contract is signed and I'm tied to this place for the next eternity or so. Besides, it's nothing compared to the true evil which found itself on our doorstep. The real bastards of this life who can't seem to stay away from tormenting other human beings, the demons. Again, I will get to them in just a moment. I'd like to just go ahead and cover another one of the unspoken rules. The ones that don't necessarily put us in deathly harm is they're not precisely followed. This rule is pretty much all-encompassing, applies to those who are not only dead but also alive. Greet your goddamn guests. Yes, that's it. That's how I like to classify and file that rule away in my mind. Whenever I find myself punching in yet for another day of work, woohoo, no matter how pissed off the guy in the lifted Ford F-950 rode my ass the entire way to the crematorium, I must always greet this place with a jovial, "Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well," even if I look like a psychopath talking to an empty room. Sometimes Mr. Abergast would be there to greet me at the beginning of my shift, which made me feel a little less stupid when I had to say it. Really, this is the first rule I figured out upon taking over the job of this previous assistant. Again, I'll get to this another time. It was an oppressively cold day when I pulled up early for one of my shifts. Even though I had blown a tire and I had to put spare on in the freezing snow, I still managed to make it there with a few minutes to spare. In my haste to catch a fresh cup of Leslie's steaming hot coffee, I neglected to greet our otherworldly visitors. Mr. Abergast had made it clear to me before I was hired to follow this particular rule, even though I didn't pay him much mind because I thought it was ridiculous at the time. As I threw off my jacket and tossed it haphazardly off the coat rack, I did one of those awkward half-run, half-walks to the break room, only for the carpet accompanying the front door to pull out from beneath me with startling ferocity. After a cup of coffee and a cigarette, I was good as new, even though the bruise on my tailbone lingered for the next few weeks. It was a pain in the ass to sit down, literally, though I never forgot to greet my ghostly friends thereafter. I suppose it's time to talk about the demons, the part I'm sure you've read on to this point for. We were fortunate enough here at the Abergast crematorium to have a few tools to help detect these creatures. Upon arrival for any new cadaver, we are to run a device along the length of their body. The best way I can describe it is like one of those metal detector wands at the airport security. This device is lovingly referred to as a paranormal spectrometer. I'm not entirely sure why my boss got the idea, let alone the parts to put together such a machine, though it never let us down to this point. After a thorough inspection of a cadaver using the PS device, it will read a number ranging between 0 and 8. What do these numbers mean? Essentially, it detects the concentration of evil, of wrath, and hatred within a particular being. Anything below 4 is considered normal. Samantha clocked in at a 3.9 unfortunately, and can be cremated as usual. No rituals or anything otherwise. Anything between a 4 and a 7 should be treated as an imminent threat to your safety, and one of the two methods for removing the demon should be undertook immediately. Finally, there is anything that clocks above a 7. In the event that the PS picks up a level this high, then it is advised that you grab your ankles and prepare to be thoroughly fucked into oblivion. I'm only half kidding. There is another method of removing a demonic spirit of this caliber. However, it entails sacrificing your life and being doomed to walk purgatory for all eternity. Not ideal, obviously. Mr. Abergast told me a story of a creature so inky black that it could seep into the shadows and take their form, morphing into things so insidious that it would drive an average man's mind into insanity. They can manipulate space and time, infecting your very soul upon just gazing at the thing. He said that the creature's PS level is clocked in at a 7.7, almost completely unheard of. The body of which it inhabited belongs to an unidentified body, a John Doe. Anything above a level 7 belongs to the likes of Ted Bundy or Joseph Stalin. People so heinous that their evil carried into their afterlife. Not too bad, right? There are 3 ways to expel these demons. Method 1. Ritual. This method is usually reserved for the demons with the PS levels between 4 and 5. They can be expelled using everyday items most people keep around their home. Thankfully, I can walk you through it. First, the body must be laid upon an even ground, such as your living room or kitchen floor. A salt line is then to be placed along the outskirts of the body, similar to the marker they use to outline crime scenes. Then a bundle of sticks, some mint leaves, and a lock of the victim's hair must be burnt, just above their head. If the demon flees the body before the salt line is completed, then please refer to Method 2. Method 2. Fight, unfortunately. You will most likely not be equipped with the necessary items to use this method. Much like the PS device, we have a specialized device of headwear and goggles, state of the art as I am concerned, that it makes possible to see beyond the material plane. Unfortunately, there are some drawbacks of using this machine, which include lifelong hallucinations and the inability to view real world in the same way again. It is nearly impossible to fight a demon without this equipment. However, I have some tips and tricks I can share with you, all soon in the event that your home becomes infested with creatures of a demonic nature. I can hear the birds chirping and the sunshine is beginning to wash over my desk. Morning has arrived. I will write you again soon. Perhaps I'll even divulge you into a few stories I have regarding to this place and my battles with the demons. It's nice getting all these thoughts written down. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or even some tips of your own, then feel free to share. Until then, I'll be relishing my time away at this place. So that was a pretty good story. Definitely different from the other stories that I've read. This one is more of a kind of like a first-person view on, ghosts and spirits and everything. but I just figured I'd try it out, see if you guys like it or not. I mean, the last video that I did that was kind of like this, actually did pretty well. The one about my cousin that never existed. So who knows, maybe this one will do pretty good too. But yeah, just let me know what you think down in the comments. And if there's ever any other stories that you find on r/nosleep, like whether if you're coming from Reddit or you happen to be on Reddit and you are subscribed to this channel, you can always just comment down below a link to the story and I'll check it out, and maybe it'll be featured in the next video. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.